that, which has not been specifically looked at, is a serious corrosion of the organized crime having its course.
And that's why I expected to hear a lot more a couple of years ago when the whole question of deporting criminals out of the United States came up. There was a question of what kind of resettlement arrangement is being made with governments for when these people are deported back to their countries to monitor and train these people who have no roots whatsoever in the country. All they're really bringing to the shores of the country they're deported to is their criminal expertise. Yeah. And that, I believe, could be one of the reasons we see the upsurge in so many areas of advanced approaches to criminality.
Well, you're hitting the nail on the head, but again, you see, you're speaking from a platform of exposure to the Homeland Security solutions based on your international linkages. And therefore, one has to know why I called for the revisit of border control and immigration, why I called for an enhancement of staff, for instance, the HR aspect for immigration is starved as it is to deal with those issues, follow-up issues. If deportees enter into Trinidad, there is a database that shows names of people and from which country they were deported, but there isn't any law enforcement monitoring of these people. There are different agencies, social support agencies that are in country that have been established and doing quite a very good job in embracing these people and getting them back on their feet. But a security approach to this also has to be established, and the security from the aspect of in-country enforcement. And therefore, it has to be a front-burner agenda now for national security to ensure that we have the resources, both manpower and hard resources, to treat with the advancement and expansion of an immigration staff to move outside of the remit of the additional controls, additional consequences, additional considerations now for such an expanded approach to operations as it involves border control and immigration.
Commander Garvin, Heerah, let me ask you, the heads are meeting in Guyana this week, heads of CARICOM. They are meeting in these discussions. You are also suggesting a joint CARICOM discussion to synergize our planning and implementation. Explain that for me.
I am strongly advocating that the threat that Trinidad and Tobago is facing today with illegal immigration, illegal immigrants. Right now, the focus is on Venezuela and Latin America, but it involves other countries, other illegal immigrants, is also the same threat that our neighbors are facing in the Caribbean basin. And therefore, when I say a synergized approach, it has to be an approach that is involved with unified discussion amongst our CARICOM heads so that we can have a standardization amongst the nations of the Caribbean to treat with this issue. And it has to be raised at CARICOM in that what Trinidad is facing is what most of the other countries are facing, but to a lesser extent. And when a decision is being made, it's the same aspect when I spoke earlier about the Homeland Security solution that was emphasized, where you must have that interministerial support, you must have that whole of government support. I am now expanding that to say it has to have a whole of CARICOM support, so that when we make a decision, we can see how it would affect our neighbors and how their decision would affect us, and how we can mobilize the resources in the region to treat with the issue now that it's at an early stage. And don't wait for this to get out of hand, because it's already slipping out of our grips.
It's already out of hand from many standpoints. So the information sharing, the best management of technological tools that are there is what we're asking for in the context of analyzing and using it as part of our planning. Those are the areas we're looking at. I just had to touch on the inland crime situation, because as we both are in concert on, they are indeed related. I want to thank you for taking the time to be with me here this morning. There are a lot more I wanted to pull from you, but we will keep that telephone line open to you to continue the conversation. I do want to close down with this. We have a situation where, when this deals with the immigration aspect of our conversation, where there is a lot of disturbance. Surely I find it very disquieting. The fact that we're hearing that the stamp that allow immigrants into Trinidad and Tobago is being sold inland. In other words, people are landing here illegally, coming here, and then they can get their stamp, and then they can get their passport stamp to, give them the requisite legalization. Have you encountered this before? Were you aware that this happened when you were up at the NOC? And if so, what was done then? Because this is nothing new. It has been going around for a while. At least I've heard about it for quite a while.
Well, you're amplifying the aspect of corruption. You're amplifying the aspect of false papers, which in fact sells again that message. The signals have to be heard now that organized crime has a strong hold on immigration and border control. Because the same way employers would be looking for smart people to work for them, for ICT experts to assist them in their technology and driving and designing wide area networks and local area networks, we are seeing the same thing taking place with organized crime, in that they have very educated people, very skilled people working for them in networks, working for them in small groups, for instance, who are quite skilled in preparing, designing, and falsifying to almost looking like a replica of false papers and passports. It may not be necessarily for in Trinidad, because Trinidad could very well be, and is, and we've seen that, a stepping stone for bigger countries, the US, the UK, and the European continent. So that exists. For instance, we are just talking false papers and maybe passports and that type of stuff. But we're seeing at this time, based on what I have picked up, university degrees, for instance, master's degrees being designed and prepared by a certain place and country. And that looks legitimate.
I always like it. I always like it when you look directly at me when you know that I'm couching a question. I was couching there because I meant to really ask straight up if this information has been out for a long time and we know folks, in fact, have been doing this. Why has nobody been picked up?
Because it takes a branch. I know I have to be back. It takes a branch from your speaker before, who was strong in the aspect of cyber crime. And I'm saying we have to look at it not as cybercrime, but cyber security.
Right.
And when you have cybersecurity, crimes can be committed. But if we focus on cybercrime, we will be dismissing the holistic concept of cybersecurity. And when cybersecurity is policed properly, issues of false papers, be it a university degree or a passport, is also an aspect of that. It's more than just posting naked pictures. It's more than just infiltrating one's privacy. It's more than what is taking place in social media. And the security classification that is offered in order to have the aspect of safety and security in the cyberspace that now dominates. Our entire critical infrastructure, for instance, Mr. Bishop, as we close, the oil and gas sector is controlled from a cyberspace and a cyber press button. If we don't secure that, we can be, for instance, victims of cyber terrorism. Now, that's a big thing. That's a whole new discussion.
Which would really cripple beyond belief. But just let me stay right there, Commander. Just before we get out here, because here's what I'm trying to arrest here. We have a situation where one of the biggest threats you can find is that you have people who are entrusted with immigration responsibility and all the staff necessary and so on is inland, is being used inland. Here is the problem we have. It is a major immigration problem. All right, a major immigration problem. Was that too far removed from the remit or the purview of the NOC when you were there? I mean, when this was going on before, why has nobody been caught? Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I know. I hear the question. And the
I can reiterate it. I can reframe it. But
the issue is because it goes back to what we said earlier. There needs to be a concentrated effort on the decision that we are going towards the corruption in immigration. We are going towards the corruption in customs. We are going towards the corruption in licensing office.
But the corruption in immigration is something that we know was out there, and I'm asking. What happened? Why were we not able to this critical area of national security, border security? How were we not able to track somebody like that? I mean, I'm listening to a statement attributed to the person who now head the immigration department that's saying that the attorney didn't share the information with me, and as such, I don't know how to do so and so. But the NOC, that's your business. Was that not your business to track something like that as a national security issue?
Let me clarify that. The NOC was established as the coordinating center.
Just as a coordinating center?
Yeah, just as the coordinating center, where information would have been received, and we would have directed that information towards the agency with the lead on it.
And if nothing was done in a case like that,
we were being developed in such a way we would be able to monitor and to see what has taken place with this. And of course, there will be continuous excuses and responses that showed, for some instance, you are not failing to enforce what we are showing you. A lot of information would have passed through the NOC. Was it carried to the end state? No, it wasn't.
Let me see if I can
there
go
were
back.
obstructions.
One of the questions I asked earlier, it exposes an alarming neglect bordering on incompetence or deliberate sabotage. That does raise a question in my mind, because after you look at these things and you see that everything you have said here this morning makes sense, and I don't think you'll find anybody disagreeing with you.
Correct.
There may be other people with different approaches and so on, but there are some things that are right in our view, things that are in the public domain, and that in itself is not indictable material. You've got to investigate it. But there is a preponderance of these things, and I would think that there must be some unwillingness
Correct.
to get to a solution. So while on the one hand, I want to take everything that the commander has said and say, yes, we can do this. As the Prime Minister said, we've got to pull out the complicity in us that contributes to this situation, and that's why we have to get to these institutions.
Internal
and start
sabotage
stripping
is a
them.
real issue. It's a real threat.
Internal sabotage. Thank you very much for couching it so accurately for me, succinctly for me. That's exactly where we were going.
Exactly.
I thank you so very much for taking the time
Mr.
to be
Bishop
with
and
us.
team, it was a pleasure.
It was indeed a pleasure. Look forward to having you here again, and I will be having you again.
Yes. I do commit.